Chapter 21. The Second Heaven and the Seventh Teacher, the Dark Archer. With the star fruit in hand, there was enough for one last bite. It was a mystical force, a spiritual delight. A great surge of energy rose through me, and so it felt as if my spiritual body had come to heal. Now when I looked at the star fruit, all I saw was the opening of an ancient seal. Now the storm clouds had grown, and it was blowing over from above before that storm and I had become interwoven together. Energy and electricity flashed from all sides, yet I did not fear being electrified, because the mystery of this life was so enchanting when again I saw the dark woman in disguise. She had closed her eyes, but she was aware from all sides. Then I watched her reveal a luminous bow and arrow. Then she shot it when a bolt of lightning came to life. This dark woman was veiled by the clouds. Then she would disappear into the fog, only to reappear elsewhere. It had taken a star fruit to spark my sight, to see her movements, and all I kept thinking was how Arda said this dark woman was his great teacher. But she was always veiled or covered, and my focus was upon her closed eyes. She was the life force behind all of this, and the veil that covered her was draped over the world as a cosmic sky. Again she raised the bow and arrow as if to spark the mind of awareness, and now the winds and weather would speak to us. Was she trying to inform us, or express that she understood the nature of reality far more than us? Again she would fire a formless arrow when lightning would strike. She seemed to be looking after us while looking down upon us, like a hidden charm within the heart. She was there within all of us, following her every move. The clouds parted as she would pass. Threads of life were woven around her, through her, as if trying to hold her back. Then she held up the bow and arrow, pointing it at me. A moment later, her eyes opened. She fired the invisible arrow into my heart, and that's when I felt a sudden explosion. A jolt of electricity vibrated between us. A shockwave of current rattled my spirit and mind. It was so sharp and bright that the mind's eye of awareness became aligned. What was that?
It's us,
said the dark, mystical woman. Then what's happening?
It's building up,
she said. Holding the bow and arrow up, she let it rip, and again, the jolt of energy reverberated through this infinite space. Boundless and without limit, a flash of lightning forced my awareness open and awake. After a moment, that flash was gone, and the energy dissipated away. The dark woman appeared calm and gentle, quite different than how she had once been portrayed. She was electric in nature, like a sharp reminder, and for a second time, she sparked my attention when she started to drift away, as I immediately went to find her. As I got closer, I saw what seemed to be electrifying me. Was this woman pushing me into labor? This woman was in labor, as pressure was growing out from all sides, and so I wondered if this dark woman was the creator. Her eyes were looking through the veil, and I was in tune with her. That pressure began building up from my root, making my spine go erect, as energy was pulling upward through my head.
This is holy ground,
she whispered. I looked down. What ground? There was nothing around, but again I saw the woman reach upon her back and reveal an arrow from a quiver. As she pulled the arrow back, an electric nature of this vast cosmic sky began to mirror her. The tighter the bow got, so did her electric nature. Just as she released the arrow into infinity, a shock of lightning erupted from within her. This blinding flash zapped us back, and This time, I had come to find out that a baby was delivered. She was the ultimate creator, and these fierce energetic strikes were growing pains, giving birth to our spiritual nature. What is it that gives life to birth?
Think of it like a spiritual elixir. It's renewal and replenishment. You are correct to ask such questions about the nature of creation. So what is the pure substance that embodies the energy of growth and rejuvenation? Some call it Amrita. Others call it God's semen. I call it heaven sent, since it is the starting point for the birth of all animals, plants, and humans,
she said. In this cloud, I began to examine what was raining down. A wet source that was once together began to drip down from the divine clouds. Following one drip in particular, my awareness was free-falling through empty space. This droplet was a potent concentration of pure energy, and so I knew it as God's grace. Surrendering and floating, it seemed to take my awareness deeper. Then I watched as the moisture descended upon the earth, and here we touched down upon the peak of the Mother's Pyramid like a divine seed of nature. For a moment, we were on top of the world, and now every other raindrop was revealed. One after the other, they touched down upon the forest, and each drop was a source of the life force that was sent down to heal. One drop of rain summoned a mushroom to sprout, and this was an opening into the mind of awareness, a certain connection back to divine consciousness, and it was all due to the dance of Arda. What is this?
This is how our fruit grows. Water is the essence of eternal youth. What is it that gives birth at the center of every seed? It is the ocean of spiritual truth,
she said. A moment later, I was back in her clouds. Within an instant, she could pull me across the universe. As if she was tied into my essence, we could go anywhere. Why, it's so beautiful to travel in the world of spirit. Yet as I looked for the dark archer in the clouds, I could not find her anywhere in this divine sky. What was it about her being so elusive? Why, I could not see her through this thick cloud that veiled her in disguise. Even though I cannot see you, I do wonder how I can feel the presence of your eyes. Why is it that humanity needs to see in order to believe? Why is it that so few have faith in the unseen divine?
You wonder why, yet you are aware of all things. Surely you know the answer. Simply look within,
said the dark archer. I see that life is a gift, and it takes great courage to live. And as we grow into our bodies, the world seems so strange. It can often feel that by living in form, we have been deceived.
What do you mean? Creation gives you everything,
she said. What was once a pure earth is governed by ruthless leaders and liars. And when it comes to religion, it seems they believe it's more important to be right than to foster the light of the spiritual fire and serve others. The world is overrun with crime, ignorance, and confusion. The schools are lacking, as there is an education crisis within our youth. Wars repeat throughout human history, and I no longer know what to do. Hidden within the shadowy clouds, I felt a hand reach out from behind me to cover my mouth. It was a man who whispered, "Shush," said Arda. A moment later, that electric energy began to surge, and now a heavy rain began to pour. Did I do something wrong?
It's not about right or wrong, but you've awoken the fierce nature of her. Just as the human soul feeds off of nature, so too nature feeds upon us. The reason for the storm is much like fuel when it ignites. Certainly fire is useful for many things, but too much of it and it'll burn everything in sight,
said Arda. The storm was growing worse and worse, and now Arda began a soothing dance, but the veiled woman in the clouds could not be calmed. It seemed that this energy was a reflection of what was happening upon the earth, and so the divine would mirror a reflection back to where the dark archer would respond.
She cares deeply for the spiritual soul, but she cares little for the decaying bodies of the human woman or man. She speaks in ways that shock the world, and far too often, humanity is attached to material things which she finds hard to understand. Have you heard of the Great Flood? Then surely you are aware of her great power. Just as she gives birth to all, so too she is known to devour,
said Arda. The storm became more violent than before, and even though I was a spiritual soul, I wasn't sure if I felt safe anymore.
They may forget my power, yet my impact is written about in all of ancient lore. Since they failed to live in union with the land, I will make sure that the force of God is not ignored. I will rid the world of such deceit. The truth will be restored. I have never been beaten, as I am what I am. I am the god of war,
said the dark archer. This storm was not like a normal storm, as she held more power than the lightning, thunder, and rain. She was within the heart of all creatures, and now she moved the lightning through the unconscious and conscious aspects of humanity. All the while, I noticed how this was rewiring people's brains. This onset of energy was fierce, and it was extending freely into the bodies of every man, woman, and child. But depending on who you were and how you lived, this energy drove some people wild. Some people were able to harness this energy, but it seemed to electrify others. Not only did it affect humanity, but it was also beginning to spread throughout the entire earth. Wind, storms, and fires arose. Then the energy burst through a volcano. It was pushing countries to the brink of war, as it energized a stale situation until no one on earth knew what to do. All the while, she continued to push more and more energy through, if only to see how each human soul might respond. All of our spirits were becoming electrified to reveal our deep and hidden emotions. But what was she doing?
She's illuminating the root of all cause,
said Arda. But these people are being overloaded by extreme energy, and I'm sensing a deep and hidden wrath. All souls are heating up inside, and we have to do something because it's making many countries prepare their armies to attack. Arda, you must calm down the storm and do your divine dance.
The purpose of such a dance is to release humanity from the illusion that they exist as a separate self. And so this storm is part of the dance because she is helping us all wake up,
said Arda. But why does it appear to be wicked or evil? It seems this energy has put the entire world in a sort of upheaval.
The root of all evil is often misunderstood, for it is just energy misaligned. I offer pure potential to all worlds for free, and so I give birth to the bloom of the spiritual fruit which grows throughout mankind. Yet when the same energy is misused, it acts like an overloaded circuit that's plugged into the wrong voltage. The same thing happens on a spiritual level, and so comes an outage. For those who are in tune with creation, we will feel this increase in energy and use it to cultivate great faith. Yet those who have failed to prepare their body, minds, and spirit properly, then they may interpret this through different emotions and feel overwhelmed or afraid. This electric energy reveals what is hidden. It exposes what has been buried. And although we may notice surges or acts of violence, terror, or aggression, it also has the power to ease the burden which so many carry,
said the Dark Archer. A moment later, Arda began to weep, and a tear fell from his eye. The teardrop began to spread into rain that poured down from the heavenly sky. It rained in the day, and it rained in the night, and it only stopped once Arda seemed to be feeling all right. How does that happen? Meanwhile, the clouds were dark blue, the same color as Arda's skin. It was such a shock to see nature mimic him. Do you know who she really is?
She's our hidden kami,
said Arda. Like a jinn?
like a spirit of the wind,
said Arda. Surely the wind listens to you.
Not quite, but she is within, and she reflects whatever exists within her surroundings. She is rare compared to other jinn, since jinn are invisible in spirit. Some jinn should be feared, but when it comes to her, she should be respected. She is elusive like a stream. She is unpredictable like a dream. And just when you think you understand her, you realize there's no intellectual understanding to describe what it all means,
said Arda. How did we discover such a kami, and how do her powers work?
She is a great artist, and existence is her artwork. That is why I've learned to dance with her. Rarely does she descend to earth. She doesn't often care to travel among the deserts, oceans, and dirt. But once she is called down by a worthy man or woman, she becomes their consort,
said Arda. And how does that happen?
She enters through the awareness of the mind's eye and descends into the heart. Then after that, it's up to her as she decides how to direct our course,
said Arda. How does one open the mind's eye of awareness?
You can do this through meditation and yoga. You can do it through devotion or prayer. You can do this by taking certain substances, and from there you will open into her. It all depends on intention, and her love cannot be bought. Her love cannot be sold. Her love is not found in the marketplace, as her love is from the Song of Songs,
said Arda. The Song of Songs?
The Song of Solomon,
said Arda. Who is Solomon? Now he stayed silent when I noticed the current of the wind. It felt as if the veiled woman in the clouds was aware and listening. She had always been around, but it's hard to remember when she's gone missing.
Solomon had many secrets, mostly because it's not something a common religion could perceive. And so the Song of Songs is a love song, disguised in a book of the Bible as elegant poetry. For the song is about a kami. It is about a spirit who lives in the gardens of heaven. And so this song is no different from the dance of Shiva with his lover. It is a record of love and devotion for the divine feminine,
said Arda. What does this have to do with Solomon?
King Solomon opened his mind's eye of awareness. Then she descended into his heart where she existed within. From there, they were able to openly communicate with plants, animals, and the wind, as well as other elemental and celestial spirits classified as kami or jinn. Some call them deities, yet some do not remain upon the earth. The highest of them live in heaven, yet they can be summoned to come forth. Solomon gained the trust of these spirits, and so he learned to work with them. In essence, they trusted him, and they developed a love and partnership, and so the kami were able to rely upon the trust of Solomon. It's the way her weather tunes in, which reveals how intimately she listens. For Solomon was also said to have written the Book of Wisdom. In it he says, "For wisdom is a kindly spirit, yet she acquits not the blasphemer of his or her guilty lips. because God is the witness of the innermost self, and the sure observer of the heart, and the listener of their tongue. For the Spirit of the Lord fills the world, and is all-embracing, and knows what man says. Solomon went on to say later that God is the guide of wisdom, for both we and our worlds are in God's hand, as well as all that is produced, and the knowledge of all crafts. For God gives us sound knowledge of all existing things, that we might know the organization of the universe and the force of its elements, the beginning and end are midpoint of times, the changes in the sun's course and the variations of the seasons, cycles of years, positions of the stars, nature of animals, tempers of beasts, powers of the wind, and thoughts of humans, uses of the plants and virtues of the roots. Such things are hidden, I learned, and such are plain, for wisdom, the craftsman of all, taught me what was said by King Solomon,
said Arda. Now the words began to flow through the air, and I could hear Solomon's ancient whisper, for she was within his spirit, or was he somehow within her? For in her is a spirit, intelligent, holy, unique, manifold, agile, clear, unstained, certain, not baneful, loving the good, keen, unhampered, beneficent, kind, firm, secure, tranquil, all-powerful, all-seeing, and pervading all spirits, as this source holds all intelligence, purity, and is very subtle. For wisdom is mobile beyond all motion, and she penetrates and pervades all things by reason of her purity. For she is an aura of the might of God, and a pure gush of the glory of the Almighty. Therefore, nothing that is tainted enters into her, for she is the brilliance of eternal light, the spotless mirror of the power of God, the image of His goodness. And she who is one can do all things, and renews everything while herself endures, and passing into holy souls from age to age, she produces friends of God and prophets. For there is nothing God loves more than one who dwells with wisdom. For she is fairer than the sun, and surpasses every star in all constellations. Compared to light, she takes precedence, for indeed night comes, but wickedness does not prevail over wisdom. Indeed, she spans the world from end to end mightily, and governs all things well.
She is beyond what can be known, and rarely does her form descend to the dirt of earth where all things grow. But every so often, someone opens one of Solomon's seals, and then she recognizes that her spirit is called to descend below,
said Arda. What do you mean, Solomon's seals?
In each of the 7 heavens, there is a certain seal, and by traveling through the first heaven, you've already opened one,
said Arda. Okay, well what's the big deal?
Then the jinn, Kami, or spirit of the heaven, descends to earth so that its force is no longer concealed. Once the spirit is let loose, there is no one who can control what it will do. That's why Solomon and I work on behalf of the craftsmen, for we dance to guide the elemental spirit of wisdom,
said Arda. What does all this mean?
By eating the star fruit, you opened the second seal, and now she travels freely between the material world and the unseen. As Solomon said, thinking thus within myself, and reflecting in my heart, that there is immortality in kinship with wisdom, and good pleasure in our friendship, and unfailing riches in the works of her hands, and that in visiting her society there is prudence, and fair renown in sharing her discourses. I went about seeking to take her for my own,
said Arda. What do you mean by that?
Once you find wisdom, you have found the eternal key. Once you find wisdom, she will be interwoven into the soul. No need to worry. Soon everyone will see,
said Arda.